All right, welcome back. It's been a couple days since the last one, but anyway, here we are. We're back, ready for another podcast. So today, I wanted to talk about this story found in the book of Mark. I'll be reading from Mark chapter 5, and this is a familiar passage of scripture to a lot of people, especially in the church. If you've been in the church a while, you've heard about. It's the story of the lady who was healed, who had an issue with blood. And anyway, so we'll read that. But just before this this lady was healed, Jesus was asked by a ruler of the synagogue to. The guy approaches Jesus and says, I need you to come to my house. My daughter is almost to the point of death, and I need you to come and heal her. And Jesus says, okay, I'll go. And then Jesus goes, and he's on his way to the man's house when the lady with the issue of blood is healed. So there is a way of interpreting scripture that I was unaware of, but once I saw it, it really opened my eyes, and I was able to, start understanding things and start seeing the picture of what Christ has done became so much more apparent and more abundant. And this, what I'm talking about is, you have to know the story of Jesus Christ, that he came to earth to save mankind, and that he was the payment for our sin, and he was crucified on a cross, and he was raised from the dead. And you have to know that, and most of us are so familiar with that story. But this story of rescuing mankind runs throughout all of the Bible, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, everywhere. And so this way of interpreting the Bible is what I'm talking about is, look for that story of Jesus Christ. Look for how he came to earth to save mankind, and you the more you become familiar with that, like, you start seeing it everywhere. And maybe one of the greatest examples is the Apostle Paul, and he used this interpretation of Scripture many times to refute the religious leaders of his day, as well as the non-believers. He would refer back to this Old Testament and say, hey, let me tell you how and why Jesus is the Christ, and that this gospel that he would present to people is true. So in this story, Mark chapter 5, verse 21, Jesus passed over again by ship to the other side, and much people were gathered unto him, and he was near the sea. And there came to him one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and he fell at his feet, and he requested him greatly, saying, my little girl lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live. And Jesus went with him, and many people followed him. And a certain woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse, when she heard of Jesus, she came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may but touch his clothes, I will be made whole. And immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed. And Jesus, knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned in the crowd and asked who touched him. So these stories are a depiction of of Christ and him being sent to earth to redeem mankind, and he goes to the Jewish nation first, and that's who he was sent for. He was sent to the Jews to save them as their Messiah, and along the way, as Jesus, fulfilled all of what he was supposed to do, the Gentile nation inherits this wonderful gift of salvation. And so the Jewish nation is depicted here by this young girl that needs to be healed. She is at the point of death. And this ruler of the synagogue, her father, knows that. And this is just like, it's so clear that this is, this gospel message hidden in these stories. So let me read on a little bit further, and then we'll come back and kind of recap and hopefully finish up. So Jesus looked around and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And they said, "There's a bunch of people around you. Why are you asking this?" And then it says in verse 33, "But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And Jesus said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be whole of your plague.' And while he was speaking, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house a man which said, 'Your daughter is dead. Don't trouble the master any further.' And as soon as Jesus heard it, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, 'Don't be afraid, only believe.' And he allowed no man to follow him except for Peter, James, and John. And he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and he saw them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was coming to the house, he said, why do you make this big commotion and weep? The little girl is not dead, but asleep.' And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother and those that were with him, Peter, James, and John, and he took her by the hand, and he said, 'Little girl, I say unto you, arise.' And immediately the little girl arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12. Okay, so there's a lot of details in here, and so many things that we can pull these little nuggets from. But understanding that this little girl is a representation of the nation of Israel. And then along the way, as Jesus is going to heal this, the Gentiles, which is, it's depicted in this story as, this woman, full-grown woman who has this issue of blood that she can't be healed from. That's representative of everybody who's not a Jew. That's the term. That's where we get the term Gentile from. It's, if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. So anybody who is not of the nation of Israel is known as a Gentile. So along this way, as Jesus is coming in to save this nation, the Gentiles inherit this wonderful gift, and they receive from Jesus, from the Christ. And then Jesus continues on to that leader of the synagogue's house, and he heals the young girl. But what I want to put an emphasis on is this older woman who gets healed. It's just an adult woman. I shouldn't have said older, but it's just an adult woman. She was unable to conceive children. She was unable to, because of this issue of blood, and she was unable to go out in public and all of the things that accompanied this disease or whatever it was. But it kept her from reproducing, and it kept her from bringing forth children. And this woman is a representation of the church. that this is us. And so many times we are unable to bear children, to reproduce, and to bring forth young ones into the faith, because we have this what the Bible calls this issue of blood, and it's something within us that we need to be healed from. And the way that this woman, who is a representation of the church, the way the church got healed of it is it reached forth and it grabbed a hold of the robe of righteousness. That's the terminology that's used for. It says, if I just touch his robe, I will be made whole. And Jesus is the representation of righteousness. And when the church, if the church will ever get a hold of this message of the gospel and specifically this word of righteousness that we don't deserve, when the church lays a hold of the righteousness, they will be healed and they will be able to reproduce, and we as the church will be able to bring forth children into the faith, and we will grow up, and we will be able to bring forth what God is wanting of the church at large, because we are known as the bride of Christ. That's how we know that this woman is a representation of the church, is because the church is always depicted in Scripture as the woman, the one who brings forth life. And the Gentile church, we need to get a hold of this message of righteousness. We need to know it, we need to possess it, and we need to reach forth, and we grab a hold of that, and we will be healed of it. The younger girl in this story is a representation of the nation of Israel. And she is at the point of death, really close to dying. And even in the story, she actually does die. She is unable, because of her immaturity, she is unable to bring forth fruit. But this ruler, the father of this nation, knows that we need Jesus Christ. We need the Messiah. And if the Messiah will touch this nation, we will be healed. And the leader knows that. And so this young girl represents Israel in its infertile because of its lack of being an adult. Like young, when you're not necessarily an infant, but as you grow and develop, it's underdeveloped, and so it's unable to get a hold of this. But the thing that the nation of Israel really needs, it says that in this story, Jesus said he didn't allow anybody to go with him except for Peter, James, and John. And names hold such a significance in Scripture. And Peter means stone, means rock. That's what his name means. Peter, James means to replace or to supplant. And then John, the name John means grace. So we have these things. It is, the stone has been replaced by grace. And when the nation of Israel, this is the message that they need. They need to know that the stone, the 10 Commandments, the law, all of that has been replaced by grace, which is a person. It is Jesus Christ. That's who it is. And they will remain in this infancy, this undeveloped state, until they get a hold of this message. And this is the message that is for all of us. We need to know that the law, the requirements, that were written on stones, those have all been replaced by grace. And we need to get a hold of this, and we need to imbibe this message of the gospel, because it is so it's so needed, and it is the only way that we can grow and that we can develop. If we don't grow, then we will never be able to experience the things that God has for us. And just like this, the Gentile church, we especially need this message of righteousness, and then that message that is to be presented to the nation of Israel, so that they can get out of their infancy stage, is they need to know that their law has been replaced by grace. That's what Peter, James, and John, that's what their names mean. And that's why Jesus only allowed them to go there, because it's another way of clearly depicting that Jesus Christ is the only way. He is the only way. So, hope that helps. Yep, we'll do it again next time. See ya.